Imagine a landmass so vast it could swallow the United States, China, India, and most of Europe combined, with room to spare. For centuries, the world looked at Africa through the lens of history, seeing it as a continent defined by its past. But today, if you look at the flight paths of military transport planes, the satellite imagery of new deep-water ports, and the logistics of high-speed rail lines, a different picture emerges. We are witnessing the start of the second scramble for Africa, but this time, the weapons aren't just muskets and maps. They are 5G networks, lithium mines, and massive infrastructure loans. From the bustling streets of Lagos to the remote deserts of Djibouti, the world's superpowers are quietly carving out spheres of influence in a race that will determine who controls the 22nd century. This isn't just about charity or development. It is a high-stakes geopolitical poker game, where the prize is nothing less than the future of the global economy. The story of this new battleground begins with a demographic explosion that is set to rewrite human history. To understand why China, Russia, and the United States are suddenly obsessed with Africa, you have to look at the numbers. By the year 2050, 1 in every 4 people on Earth will be African. This is the youngest, fastest-growing workforce in the world. While the populations of Europe and East Asia are shrinking and aging, Africa is the only place left with the human capital to drive global growth. But here's where it gets strange. While the West was focused on the Middle East, China spent 20 years quietly building the literal foundations of the continent. Nearly 1/3 of all major infrastructure projects in Africa, from the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa to the massive railways of Kenya, were built by Chinese firms. The tension only gets worse when you look at the battery race. As the world transitions to green energy, the road to a zero-carbon future runs directly through the Democratic Republic of Congo. This single country holds more than 70% of the world's cobalt, a mineral essential for every electric vehicle battery on the planet. What they found next shocked Western intelligence agencies. Chinese companies now own or have a stake in 15 of the 19 primary cobalt-producing mines in the DRC. This gives Beijing a mineral chokehold over the global automotive industry. The United States has recently scrambled to counter this by backing the Libido Corridor, a massive rail project designed to bypass Chinese-controlled ports and ship these minerals directly to the Atlantic. It is a 19th-century railroad war fought with 21st-century technology. But here is the twist. While China builds the roads and the US secures the mines, Russia has found a different way to exert control. Over the last few years, the presence of Russian private military companies has exploded across the Sahel region. From Mali to the Central African Republic, Moscow is offering a security package to governments in exchange for access to gold and diamond mines. What they found next shocked the UN. Russia has effectively replaced France as the primary security partner for several African nations. By providing elite bodyguards and counterinsurgency support, Russia has gained a strategic foothold in the heart of the continent without ever deploying a formal army. It is a shadow empire built on gold and private contracts. And it only gets worse when you consider the port problem. Africa's coastline is becoming some of the most expensive real estate on Earth. In the tiny nation of Djibouti, situated at the entrance to the Red Sea, you can find the only permanent US military base in Africa, sitting just a few miles away from China's first overseas naval base. They are joined by Japanese, French, and Italian facilities, all staring at each other across a few miles of desert. Why? Because whoever controls the ports of Africa controls the gates to global trade. In 2026, we are seeing the emergence of dual-use ports, massive commercial shipping hubs built by foreign powers that can be converted into naval bases in a matter of days. The loop of suspense doesn't end with the ports. There is a silent war happening in the digital world. For millions of Africans, their first experience with the internet comes through a Chinese-made smartphone, running on a Chinese-built 5G network, using Chinese-developed apps. This isn't just about market share, It is about the data heartland. By controlling the digital infrastructure of the continent, a foreign power can potentially monitor the communications, financial transactions, and movements of an entire generation of future leaders. The US has responded with the Clean Network Initiative, trying to convince African nations to strip out foreign hardware. But for many, the cheap and efficient technology of the East is too hard to refuse. What they found next shocked everyone who thought Africa was just a passive victim in this race. African leaders are increasingly playing the superpowers against each other. They are multi-aligning, taking a railroad from China, a security detail from Russia, and a tech investment from Silicon Valley all at once. This agency of the underdog is creating a new kind of diplomacy where Africa is no longer the menu, but a guest at the table. However, this comes with a terrifying risk: the debt trap. Many nations have taken on billions in loans that they can never realistically repay. If a country defaults, the foreign power can sometimes take control of the very infrastructure they built, leading to a new form of digital and physical colonialism. The tension only gets worse when you look at the food frontier. As climate change ravages traditional farming belts in the northern hemisphere, the fertile, uncultivated lands of sub-Saharan Africa are being eyed as the world's future breadbasket. We are seeing land grabs on a scale never before witnessed, where foreign governments are leasing millions of hectares of land to grow food for their own populations back home. In a world of 8 billion people, the ability to grow grain is a strategic weapon as powerful as any missile. What makes this even more unsettling is the proxy problem. As world powers compete for influence, internal conflicts in African nations are being fueled by outside interests. A civil war in one country might actually be a battle between a Chinese-backed mining interest and a Western-backed government. This has led to a perpetual state of instability in some of the most resource-rich areas of the planet. The tragedy is that while the world powers fight for the future, the people living on the land are often caught in the crossfire of a game they didn't ask to play. The conclusion to this story brings us back to the sheer scale of the continent. Africa is not a country. It is 54 nations with thousands of languages and a spirit that has survived centuries of exploitation. The next battleground isn't just about who wins the mines or the ports. It's about whether Africa can use this global competition to finally build a future on its own terms. The skyscrapers of Nairobi and the tech hubs of Lagos are proof that the continent is rising, but the shadows of foreign warships in the harbors show that the world isn't ready to let go. The mystery of Africa's future is whether the second Scramble will lead to a new era of prosperity or a repeat of the tragedies of the past. As the lithium flows out and the fiber optic cables flow in, the heartbeat of the world is moving south. The map of the 21st century is being drawn in the red dust of the savannah, and for the first time in history, the world is realizing that you cannot lead the future if you don't have a seat in Africa. The race is on, the stakes are absolute, and the continent is no longer waiting for permission to change the world.